In discussing the COVID-19 pandemic's tremendous effects, this section names it as one of the biggest public health emergencies and economic downturns in recent history. It describes the global spread and how cities served as the pandemic's focal points. Notwithstanding these obstacles, the World Cities Report 2020 makes the case, which is supported by lots of data, for the inherent worth of sustainable urbanization. It highlights the distinctive qualities of cities and examines how technology, local government, and focused investments may promote sustainable urban growth. The report also claims that cities with proper planning, management, and funding can recover from pandemics and other disasters, enhancing the standard of living for all. This may ultimately lead to the tackling of the most pressing global issues such as climate change, poverty, unemployment, and inequality. The report's recommendations are thought to be helpful for governments to increase the value of sustainable urbanization and effectively assist the world's efforts to meet the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. The need for cooperation and solidarity is emphasized in the GWOPA article, especially when it comes to urban water and sanitation. It emphasizes how vital urban fundamental services are to creating a more accessible future. The pandemic has brought to light significant inequalities in urban areas, notably with regards to having access to reasonably priced, clean drinking water and sanitary conditions. In order to address these discrepancies and move closer to Sustainable Development Goal 6, improved city design, management, and governance become crucial.
The COVID-19 pandemic dominated the 2 years between these additions that they do for the urban life. And the report is now at a time where the world has ever more dynamic environments for these urban factors. One of the main things they said was that cities are here to stay, and the future of humanity is undoubtedly urban, but it's not exclusively in large metropolitan areas. The emergence of urbanization as a global megatrend is with these existential challenges that the world has faced in the last 50 years, but by building economic, social, and environmental resilience, these governments and institutional structures, they have to be the heart of the future cities. I was also able to gain from this article that the cities generate wealth, but they also unfortunately have poverty and inequality, from slums to homelessness, and inequality takes many forms. It's not just race or sex, it's also day-to-day problems that we don't even know about or talk about. Lastly, with this article, the sustainable urban development isn't possible without effective multi-level urban governance. This includes local governments, civil society, and national governments. And all these governments and societies have been severely tested since 2020, which allows them to be able to have to adjust on the fly and come up with new solutions for problems. And my other article I was looking into was the United Nations Conference on the Trade and Development for Urbanization, since I really think this goes well together with what we talked about in week 4. And all over the world, a growing proportion of the population lives in cities. In 2012, it was 52.5%. And in 2022, it was increased to 56.9%. So that's obviously a great increase just in 10 years. And the world population is at 8 billion towards the end of 2022. And since the late 1980s, the population growth has gradually slowed down. And this was especially brought to attention during the COVID-19 pandemic because it was projected to be 0.8% in 2022. However, it's expected to accelerate in 2023, and it will descend towards a forecast of 0.5% annual growth in 2050. And I was really able to gather from these articles that urbanization is not only important, but is a main factor in making sure our cities run smoothly.
Starting with Chapter 7, I read on how many people who work in developing countries are part of informal sector workers. This means they are working and the government isn't accounting them for it, and there isn't taxes. This ranged from 27% all the way to 60% of workers in Africa, Southern Asia, Eastern Asia, Caribbeans, and Latin America. Majority of these people are working as street vendors and do so for most of their lives while still living in slums. In this chapter, they speak on different ways to help these countries by changing the land, getting in touch with economic actors, and providing services and public spaces. Now moving on to Chapter 11. They speak on urban planning and what can be done. There are many factors that get in the way of global development, like climate change, global economic crisis, food security, and so on. This does not mean there is no hope. A couple of ways the new role for urban planning can be helped is by strengthening the role of governments, embedding innovative ideas, and while there is more, another that stuck out is redefining the relationship between the markets and the planning system. I feel if this would be able to happen, not only cities but countries also, all over the world, would be able to thrive. Now, an article I found written by Vanessa Watson is "The Planned City Sweeps the Poor Away: Urban Planning and 21st Century Urbanization." Vanessa Watson has a degree in architecture, planning, and geomatics from the University of Cape Town in South Africa. She released this article in 2009 and also agreed on how these communities in the South were struggling because of a weak government, environmental crisis, and not strong infrastructure. She speaks on how urban planning has been seen as working around the poor and hopes that future or urban planning will put them into thought. While this was written in 2009, the same as my source, we can see that this was a global issue then and is still an issue in today's society as we see people struggling in Africa and other underdeveloped countries.
It explores the potential of data in improving lives and advancing development of goals around the world. It also talks about the importance of data governance and equitable access of data, stating that simply gaining more data is not sufficient. The report highlights the need for effective use of data to enhance development outcomes, particularly for those in poverty. It outlines 3 main pathways that data impacts development, which are used by governments for data that creates trust, gets rid of misuse, and ensures equal access. In order to do this, we must work on improving data infrastructure, legal and regulatory frameworks, and international cooperation. This will help create regulations and policies that will help to mend the struggles regarding data. In the keynote speech from Sayadna Nadella on YouTube, he relates this. He speaks about the importance of data and how it allows for intelligent action. We're able to make smarter, more informed choices when we have data. Data also helps us better predict future outcomes, allowing people to prepare properly. The use of data are infinite and when used correctly.